Welcome, listeners, to yet another episode of 100% Sale of Journalism Ethics here with me, Kaushal Bhatia.
And Shailesh.
For all the first time listeners, here's how it'll go. Sailesh and myself have selected a few stories from certain beats and give our 2 cents on the same. In the first minute, we have to narrate the story in as much detail as possible, and the following few minutes is open for group discussion. Now, before we begin, as the regular three people who tune into this podcast must have noticed, there is a 2 week gap since the last episode, and the reason for that gap includes a boring logistical and technical explanation that would
Hmm.
that would surely make you switch to something more interesting. So, without wasting any more of your time, my time, Sailesh's time, and time in general, let's go to our first beat, which is national news, and that will be taken up by me.
Yeah.
This news is from the Telegraph, and
Okay.
here the byline is credited to Jinuk Mazumdar.
Okay.
Here's the headline: ICSE YouTube sessions for class 10 12 students.
Ah.
The ICSE Council will conduct virtual classes on YouTube in October for students of class 10 and 12. The specialized classes by subject teachers will be distinct from the online classes being conducted by schools for their students.
Okay.
These classes will be for council students across the country. The Council for Indian School Certificate Examinations has said that live lessons will be made available on the council's website for viewing later. The council started live streaming lessons in September on the council's YouTube channel and decided to continue it in October. School heads
Ah.
have been asked to inform students and teachers. In view of the positive response received from students, parents, and teachers, the council has decided to continue with these live sessions in the month of October. Jerry Arathun, chief executive and secretary of the council, said in a circular to the heads of council schools. Now, let me just put my opinion on this particular story. Is that this is great. If you want to give
Ah.
right to education, you want to give free education, we already have the platform for that. I think this is
Correct.
so great. If like you can do this with all the schools, I would say I would encourage this because
Ah.
you can I think we have a our friend Ramrai has this club that he started in Goa
Ah.
University called the Pinnacle Club, where they discuss various things, whether it's a new
Correct.
policy or whether it's some change in the government or whatnot. There are many things that are discussed there, and the new format, because of the lockdown, where everyone comes on Google Meet, it is recorded. There are people who are part of the conversation that can send messages in the Google Meet to the person who's speaking at the moment, but at the same time people on YouTube can watch it live and just enjoy that content whether they're giving some information or not. And I think on that
Correct.
same way, they can use YouTube to just like give information on these subjects. It would be so nice. Anyways, these teachers are taking the energy to prepare and all. If they are going to do something like this which stays for posterity, then the teachers don't even have to keep doing this in class every year. They can just
Correct.
show these YouTube videos, and if there's something new to add, these teachers can learn the relevant information, be updated, and then help the students be relevant or be up to date on that particular subjects, whichever it is.
Correct.
Yeah, anything you'd like to add to this, Sailesh?
I think you summed it up well. Any basic access to education, I mean, especially this kind of an education is a good initiative. And like you said, the sessions can be recorded. And a lot of the times I've noticed when I went to the university and I've sat for the same lecture maybe in the next semester. When I was in the first year, I attended that lecture, and when I went to the second year and I attended the same lecture, it would be mostly the same context, sorry, content.
Hmm.
And what the professor would do is use the same examples, same anecdotes,
Yeah.
and what would happen is I found the second, I found it boring the second time around, but the first time around I experienced a lot of joy, and at the same time I felt if this content is so good, the lecture, it should be available online for
Yes.
others too.
Yes.
So I think what your point is very valid, of recording it, and of course, rarely do things develop so fast in education that you need to update your content every year. But
Yeah.
those can be exceptional times when they do end up doing that.
Definitely. So I think the report is a good thing. It's a great thing that they're doing this, and
Correct.
we've already told what our opinion on this matter is. It's a great thing forward.
Correct.
With that being said, do you want to straight away move on to the next beat?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay. So the next beat is national politics,
Yeah.
and this beat is taken up by you, Sailesh.
Yes.
Anytime you're ready.
Okay. The story I chose for this was uh, Edapadi Palaniswamy is AIADMK's chief ministerial candidate for 2021 assembly elections. So anyone who's been following Tamil Nadu politics will know that when it comes to AIADMK after Jayalalitha, Edapadi Palaniswamy and his deputy chief minister O
Paneer
Panniraswamy,
Selvam. Paneer
Paneer
Selvam.
Selvam,
Yeah.
sorry, my bad on the names.
Hmm.
So his deputy chief minister O Pannirselvam have been at loggerheads since the passing of Jayalalitha. And what had happened is it even threatened to split the party, and it did split the party in two. And there are two factions. But recently they merged, and what they did was they decided on consensus that Palaniswamy will be the chief ministerial candidate, and Selvam will have other benefits in the party. Then they announced a 11-member steering committee
Okay.
that was made by Selvam. So he got that, and it will be mostly staffed with his own people. At least they'll have a majority. And now the factional feud has come to a close just ahead of the assembly elections. And Tamil Nadu is a crucial state. Not only is it an industrialized state, it is also sending a lot of MPs to the Lok Sabha, and at the same time, the assembly is quite big. So AIADMK currently controls about 136 or 35 seats, if I'm not wrong. So in this case, what happens is, being the largest party in the assembly, there was a question whether they would make it beyond after Jayalalitha. Where would the party stand?
Correct.
And her successors, Sashikala, who's currently in jail.
Yeah.
Uh,
She's going to
the
be out
thing,
soon.
yeah. So now the question is, where would they go? And AIDMK have sort of covertly or overtly been with BJP for a very long time.
Hmm.
So my opinion is, just ahead of the election, this is the real test for the party, whether the party will last beyond Jayalalitha's legacy, or it will die, or rather become reduced, given the fact that Kamal Hassan and Rajnikant are also in the fray in the next
Yeah.
assembly election.
But I think
Hmm.
Rajnikant's party is not. I think he's withdrew from the whole thing, the political life. I believe, if I'm not wrong, he's just not pushing it as much as Kamal Hassan would be. But I would still put all my money on DMK because
Correct,
after
correct.
Jayalalitha, I think Karunanidhi also, who was the founder or one of the main people of DMK, he had also passed away quite soon after Jayalalitha,
Hmm.
and the Stalin is quite a respected person. He's also got this particular
Hmm.
following. He's a straight heir of DMK, and they have that kind of a
Correct, correct.
following in Tamil Nadu politics, where you kind of see one guy as worship following type of. You see them as the hero, as the savior, and then you just follow
Correct.
their diktats, whatever it is. It's kind of like a dictatorship, but like a democratic dictatorship. I don't know. It's a weird way to say it, but you understand what I'm saying.
No, I agree. In fact, where Stalin made his mark was when they went for Lok Sabha election in 2019. Stalin won 24 Lok Sabha seats.
Hmm.
Sorry, yeah, total seats they won, and
Okay.
Congress won quite a few of them. So it kind of proved that the people have given the mantle to him in a way. And later on, when the assembly election comes, it is certain that his party is coming. It would come to power because they've been traditionally in the line for a while. Whereas Kamal Hassan and Rajnikant, their approach, it depends how much of an impact they've made,
Hmm.
because whether they are able to translate their film popularity to real popularity to real popularity of
Correct.
sorts.
Yeah.
So, like you said, Rajnikant has announced, not to engage his cadres to not to engage in political activity. But it's a very confusing thing whether he has withdrawn completely or is still in fray of what is happening exactly. But he did make a big event last year where he announced that he's going to
Yeah,
get into
because he's
politics.
Rajnikant. He says anything, it's going to be a big event.
No, but he made. I like the way he approached it.
Right,
He
right.
held a rally with the people and he met people continuously for a few days. People would just walk up, go to the event venue, and then meet Rajnikant. And, consistently that had been going on. So I thought it was a nice way of, getting into it.
Yeah, so let's see where this goes. There
Correct.
is O Paneer Selvam who was selected CM by Jayalalitha, and
Correct.
we've got Palani Swami was selected by Sasikala, and then there is
Correct.
a you know tiff between them. Let's see where what that leads to. We will
For
follow.
now, though, it's settled. For now, the dust has settled.
So I mean, it depends. Now you never know. There can be like really end moment things that can happen because
True, true, true.
Paneer Selvam is also he's quite well respected, and Sasikala there's a drawback with her arrest and all, and the conspiracy theories, and
Correct.
you know, so you can flip it anytime. There's a lot of room for that. Uh,
That's true. That's true.
on that note, I think we'll move on to the next beat.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay, so the next beat is business that I'll be taking up, and this story is from the Times of India. The byline is not credited to anyone. It is just to the Times News Network, I guess.
Okay.
Here's the headline: Small businesses, 1 in 5 fails to pay EMI.
Okay.
With finance being the biggest problem confronting small businesses, nearly 1 in every 5 micro and small enterprises fail to pay its loan EMI in September, a survey has shown. The survey, with
Okay.
17,500 respondents by Consortium of Indian Associations, a trade body that claims to represent 30 trade bodies, showed that in September, over half the micro, small, and medium enterprises said their sales were between 25 and 75% of the year ago level. Yet, more than half the micro and small enterprises said that finance was the biggest concern, with around 38% of medium enterprises voicing similar concerns. Irrespective of the size, orders were the second biggest worry. As a result, loan payment is a worry, with loan moratorium ending in August. Around 62% of EMI payments were cleared in the first instance after the mandate was presented to the bank, the survey showed. In about
Okay.
17% cases, the installment was cleared on representation of the ECS or check. Basically, they are saying 1 in 5 banks were not able to pay their EMIs, which they
Okay.
have bought to run their businesses. And this
Yeah.
is a direct result of the lockdown. This is the direct result of the pandemic that has hit the world over.
Correct.
And because of this, people have started to get these phobias of going out, of
Correct.
doing any economic transaction which has like a object or a product, because you feel like the coronavirus is on this product, or you don't want to go to a crowded place. And whether despite there being enough people in the market, it is still considerably less than there would have been if this fear of not catching, because economics has been hit, it's the truth.
Economics
And
are what? I'm sorry.
the economics of India has been hit very hard.
Yeah, correct, correct.
1 in 5 businesses that fail to pay EMI. I thought that the number would be more. So I don't know. I think this is what I expected. 1 in 5, with what the condition of the economy is.
Correct. But
I feel 1 in 5 is not a. It's a bad
Okay.
number, but it's not as bad
Okay.
as I thought. I thought it'd be like 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 5.
no, but
Big number like that.
the thing is, 1 out of 5 is bad because our economy declined 23%,
Yeah.
23.4 if I'm not wrong. So that is 1/4. That's around 25%. Now, when you look at 1 and 5, it's 20%. So when you consider 100, you consider 20% of those people have not been able to pay their EMIs. So it's reflecting of how much the economy has declined and how many number of people have how many number of businesses have failed to pay their EMIs. Now the point is, when those 20% fail to pay their EMIs, those people who are employing people, so their economy gets hit. Now those people
Yeah.
stop spending money. So the whole economy is calculated on the basis of expenses and consumption. Our GDP has declined around 23.4%, if I'm not wrong,
9%.
and
23 point.
9%. So that's like 24% only. Now that's 24% of the economy. And when you consider the 1 in 5 figure, it's around 20%. So 20% of those people have failed to pay their EMIs. So now what happens is they are una- inability to pay shows that probably their employees are suffering, so those people are also not spending. So the whole economy is based on the income and expenses of the citizens of this country. Now the problem is, if that is getting impacted, those 20%, in the next quarter we'll have to see how much impact it has had on the GDP. And this is, from what I know, surveys are they take a sample survey and try to estimate what is happening at large.
Correct.
Now, according to this, only 20% have been hit. Probably it's more or probably it's less, you never know. But the point is, 20% for me is a very high number. That's uh, a very large chunk of your economy not earning what they would earn. And like you said, their business has been around 25 to 75%. Now it may depend on the nature of the business, how it is done. For example, uh, if it is services, it's difficult to get business at this point of time, and people don't have the money to spend. So we have a very bleak future, and I don't want to sound alarmist. It's actually a bleak future, economic future rather. But that's the reason I feel bad when I hear that 20% of those people not being able to pay. 1 in 5 may not sound that bad, but when you look at it overall, t- their impact on the economy, which is getting reduced, it's a cause for concern, basically.
No, you're probably right. I think, I guess because you don't have that direct experience about how this is affecting businesses. That's why I can say it with so much detachment. But
Okay, yeah,
you're probably right. I think 20% is quite a bit. It's a
high
big
number.
number.
Yeah.
But when you put it down to 1 in 5, you're like, oh, okay. But
Correct, but if you say like maybe 1% out of the 100, only 1 or 2 people have failed in the 100.
20.
No, no, no. If you say 1 or 2 people have failed, then
Ah,
you mean your economy has survived the COVID impact.
correct,
Let's
correct.
say 1 or 2 people or 1 or 2% is still like you can, the government can support those people. But now what happens, 20% becomes too large, and at the end
Correct.
of the day, the government today is not being able to pay their GST, whatever the promises were made to the states under the GST, that they will pay certain amount to them. They are saying we won't be able to pay. It's an act of
But
God.
that is also the comptroller and auditor general said that was a they did some gotala there, right? They
Correct. So that's the point. Now, what happens in this case is, now circumstances are so dire that they have to do that also now. You understand?
I mean, I don't know if they have to do that. They've done
Uh,
that before, before the
yeah.
circumstances were so dire. But I guess they
But
brought the circumstances
government,
to that level.
no.
The economy was doing bad before lockdown, anyways.
Correct. No, what
Yeah.
I meant to say is, before whatever the assurance were given to the states, they had paid those states that amount, but now they are not even willing to pay that
Hmm.
because of the coronavirus impact. Now imagine
Yeah.
having a 20% of your industry getting hurt. It's bad to me.
That is true. That is true.
Mhm.
I think on that note, on the dire note of our economy on the brink of
True,
collapsing,
true.
let's move on to the next beat.
Yeah.
That is international, and that is taken up by you, Sailesh. Anytime you're ready.
Okay. So I have a very interesting story for this particular beat this week. The Michigan State Governor in the US, Gretchen Whitmer, there's a militia group in the US who had plans to abduct her
Oh.
and overthrow the state. And what happened is, fortunately, the FBI had already infiltrated the operation. They had an undercover agent with them, so they had real-time updates on what they were doing. And so what happened is, recently the FBI moved in and busted it. And it was recently announced by the governor that such a plot had been brewing for a while, and the people behind it, and don't laugh at the name because
the name may sound like a joke, but these guys are for real. So the name is Boogaloo Boys.
Oh,
So what
Boogaloo Boys.
Boogaloo Boys?
Boogaloo Boys. Here, I've opened a similar this thing. They said they called them the Wolverine Watchmen.
No, they can go by any name, but then largely they go by, they are a different, like there are Proud Boys, right? They've been in
Yeah,
news since term. So
yeah.
there's Antifa. Now Boogaloo Boys is similar. It's like a group. It's a leaderless movement, just like Antifa or
Okay,
Proud
okay.
Boys. They are difficult to track. They have similar goals, but for each one the path is slightly different, and for each one the whole idea of what the end goal is slight variation from each other. So what those guys were planning is to kidnap the state governor,
Hmm.
take over the state. And the reason they wanted to do, especially now, is because of the whole COVID-19 situation, which has put the state under lockdown. And these guys have consistently opposed that move of putting it under lockdown. And the
Hmm.
reason is because it's very confusing to understand these guys, because they have this thing about of being anti-government. They feel like the US Constitution is under threat whenever the government is taking adverse measures, like they did when the COVID-19 hit. They closed down the economy, lockdowns and all.
Hmm.
And for them, they feel they need to over, if the situation becomes grim where the government is stepping up beyond its means and powers, for them the idea is to go and overthrow the government and restore it to the way it was. So some of them have been Trump supporters, but they are
Hmm.
not right in the traditional sense. So BBC's James Clayton, the North America technology reporter, has written an analysis piece, and he says they are extremist libertarians. So some of them may have espoused support for Trump and all those things, but they are not right wing uh, in the core when you see.
Okay.
So the whole idea was to kidnap the governor, and they said if the government keeps putting restrictions, they would storm the capital and take over the state uh, administration and then restore it back the way it was. So that their whole idea is the government shouldn't interfere in the lives of people. And some of them, one of the guys has even his name is Stephen Carillo. He's a 32-year-old US Air Force sergeant. He's been
Oh,
charged with the murder of two officers during George Floyd protest, one in Oklahoma and one in Santa Cruz. So
what are you talking about, bro?
yeah, so like I said, these guys are for real. Their name is a joke. It's a funny name, but then
Yeah.
they are serious. So there are
No,
about
I'll tell you, I've got the
uh,
NDTV report that they've got from Reuters, and here they
yeah.
said the Wolverine Watchman Group has used Facebook since November 2019 to recruit
Okay.
members and trained with firearms to prepare for the Boogaloo, a term used in the militia movement for an uprising against the government or impending civil war, according to affidavits in support of the
Correct.
state charges.
Correct. Correct.
When you said that their aim is to basically correct if the government is going too much to one side, or if they are, not working the way they are supposed to,
No,
and
no,
bring
no.
it.
If they start interfering, if these guys feel,
Okay.
if they start violating the US Constitution, the rights these guys are given under the Constitution, if the
Yeah, so
government,
that only. If they are,
yeah, that,
that reminded me of the Turkish army.
correct.
You know what I mean? Obviously, it would be. I don't know if I'm say if it could also actually it could
No,
be a
no, no.
very
You're
good
correct,
fit.
because Turkish army until 2016 used to be the guardian of the secular thought in Turkey.
Yes.
Whenever there came a situation where the country would be moving towards the right, the Turkish army would do a coup and replace the government. So the 2016 coup failed, but that was the army doing its job as
Yeah.
guardians of secularism. And it may sound stupid or whatever it is, but the truth is, Turkey, being an Ottoman country, being their emperors, being the caliphs of all Muslims, the whole Turkish idea is to break away from that past, and
Hmm.
uh, Recep Tayyip Erdogan is trying to bring that back, and the Turkish
Yeah.
army reacted to it. You're completely right when you give that example. It's on point.
Brilliant. Okay, so for all our listeners, you all can also
Hmm.
see the comparison there. There's some more
Yeah,
information for you. Maybe in the future we get an article where we can discuss this further.
correct.
But besides that, I think on this particular note, let's move on to the next beat.
No. One more point I would like to make.
Okay, start.
Uh, some political commentators have been saying for a while that Trump's presidency has not only broken the Republican Party, it's also divided the country in such a way that there is a genuine fear of civil war. And recently, if you've seen,
Hmm.
Trump has been saying, the reporters have been asking him whether you would accept the presidential elections if you lose, and he said
No.
he's never directly said that I will accept it. He said we'll see what happens most of the times. So and there is a fear that if he resists, there are armed militias, there is a whole gun lobby behind it. What happens then when they get active? So the fear of civil war, it's not unfounded completely.
No, that is true. I've
Mm.
read the same things
Correct.
online. But let's see now where it leads to. The
Yeah,
world is in a very shaky place. And on that
correct.
note,
Yeah,
we'll move on to the next beat, which is sports.
yeah,
And I'll be taking that up.
yeah.
This particular news report article interview is from the
Okay,
Hindu, and
okay,
it is credited to K. Kirthivasan.
okay,
Here's the headline: French league stint excites Hermit. The 27-year Indian paddler or table tennis player Harmeet Desai is excited about playing in the French second division league beginning at Rouen on October 20th. The 27-year-old, who will turn out for Club Loire Nord (TTC), said, "I am quite excited and a bit anxious as well because I have not been away from competition for such a long time. I
okay,
feel I am playing well in practice, but it will be totally different in a match. I hope everything will fall in place," Harmeet told the Hindu from Surat on Friday. Harmeet
okay,
said he would be flying out on October 9. "Even if I am
okay,
quarantined, I will still have time to get ready for the match."
okay.
He revealed, okay, so this is basically Harmeet Desai, who has
Yeah,
been recruited by one of the clubs in the
okay,
table tennis league of
okay,
France,
okay,
which I found is very interesting. And then I went online to see how many table tennis leagues are there.
okay.
And in this website, there are two websites, two links which we'll be sharing.
Yeah,
This one talks about the world's top 8 table tennis leagues. The first is from China, the Chinese Super League, then the
okay,
German Bundesliga, then the Russian Premier League, and the fourth is the French Pro A League, which basically there are table tennis players, their groups and all, and they play for
hmm.
their respective clubs, and they play tournaments and competitions. I still could not find where they broadcast these things online, but I feel this is interesting. I feel because even table tennis is a really fun game. I enjoy it. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy playing it
True,
both.
true.
And even last time we talked about the same thing with basketball. The
Correct.
Indian captain of basketball team had talked about how a IPL type of basketball league in India would do it such a great benefit, and that has to do with so many sports. And I'm like,
True.
there are so many people who are anyways free, standing on the streets doing nothing. If you let them sit in a stadium and watch something, and you organize it,
Hmm.
plus you have broadcasting rights, you will get advertisers, you'll get all of that. You just need someone to kind of bring it all together. Now, obviously, you can't leave
True.
that to the state leagues and all these boards that exist that govern these sports because, well, they are reeking of a lot of unhappiness
Correct.
because it's become a political thing. But I feel that it's going to benefit, and this was just something I found. If y'all are interested, y'all can check out the French Pro A League. I don't know where it is
Yeah.
broadcasted. I've tried YouTube, but there will be something or the other. Your thoughts on this,
Okay.
Sailesh?
I think I'm very surprised, to be honest, that there's a tennis league in France. I'm
Yeah.
very less knowledgeable when it comes to sports. And uh, if you're saying it's one of the top five, you've mentioned it the third time, right?
Four. It's the fourth one.
fourth one, right? So I
Yeah,
think the Indian getting into it, usually whenever this happens, right, for me, it's like a breakthrough for Indians to look
yeah.
into, because many times it is the others then realize, okay, those guys have found some talent here, and eventually it might lead to many more people going into those kind of leagues. And the fact is, I am very unaware of this whole league thing. If
Wait,
that
your voice, Sailesh,
uh,
your voice is
uh,
I think it's either your net or cracking a little bit. But like you said, yeah, it's a great foot in the door for Indian
correct,
professional
correct,
players who will
correct,
later
correct.
on get scouted by the French league and other such
True,
leagues that exist of these sports.
true, true,
And
true.
go on if there's anything more you'd like to add.
No, no, that's it. I mean, I'm just happy for the guy that,
Yeah,
he
same
did
here.
it.
I think this is good. Like you said, this is definitely that. It's a foot in the door. A lot more
True.
people will benefit from this. There will be good prosperity, and maybe that also encourages our local
Uh,
sports,
true.
authorities to kind of up their game, give them the infrastructure they deserve. And
Correct.
on that note,
All the best for
yeah,
Mr. Desai.
yes, all the best to Harmeet Desai, who's going to play in for the second division. It's not even the A League; it's like the second division of it. But still,
True.
it's a big deal.
Correct.
27-year-old Harmeet Desai, all the best. And if you all will follow this online, it'll be a great thing. Do follow it and just keep commenting about how it's going if you're
True.
following it. One of the three
True.
people who are tuning in. On that note, let's move on to the next beat.
True.
And the next beat is entertainment, which will be taken up by you, Sailesh, whenever you are ready.
Okay. So the story is to do with Dilip Kumar, and it has to do with Pakistan. And as you may know, uh, Dilip Kumar's ancestral houses in Peshawar, and the Pakistani government has decided to purchase Dilip Kumar's house and maintain it. And for many who may also know that Raj Kapoor's ancestral house is also in the vicinity. So I've seen the photos of the house. It's in a dilapidated condition, and I hope that for the sake of at least tourism, the government of Pakistan would take it seriously and maintain the house. And this is being done under Peshawar Revival Plan. So, those who don't know, Peshawar is a very old city, and like many old cities, it has those big walls, and within it lies the old settlements. So, one of those houses is Dalip Kumar's, and the government has been trying to, for the past few years, renovate or redevelop, not redevelop, rather maintain the whole infrastructure within that those walls, so that tourism can get a boost. And it is, at the end of the day, heritage of the country. So anything you would like to add, Kaushal, about this?
Yeah, I was thinking, like, imagine if you had a house like that, okay? Let's say you have like a house that you've lived in, and it's
Hmm.
quite old. You obviously we won't be able to imagine it so much because we've not aged that much. But let's say you moved to another place, and then your house is like this. How would it would you get nostalgic? Like he's 97 now. He's,
Correct.
so it's just I'm trying to think from his perspective of how he'll take this news. He'll definitely want to go and visit it, right? Once they redo it.
Redo it. Yeah.
I would want to. Obviously, I'm not Dilip Kumar or anyone popular or famous, and nor do I have a ancestral house anywhere.
True.
But I think yeah, it's a very sweet thing. Yeah, I feel it's a good thing, and they anyways are very proud of Dilip Kumar making it big in Bollywood.
True.
No
True.
matter how much enmity there is between India and Pakistan, it's all superficial in terms of that there are going to
It's
be there are going to be border areas, and there are going to be those affected by partition who will never forget it, who
true.
will
True.
always be very this with it. But people who live, let's say, in Mumbai and all of that, and who are of the later generations, they
True.
don't see what the big hatred is about. Obviously, they are going to be loyal to India first, but I feel this, and this has been shown in Bollywood. Like
True.
they've supported Dilip Kumar, they've supported Raj Kapoor, they've supported a lot of these actors, and Bollywood is very popular in Pakistan.
True.
So
True.
good news. I feel this is great, and I hope he gets to see it once it's redone. So on that note,
Yeah.
we'll move on to the next beat, and the next beat is opinion of the week.
Yeah.
Opinion of the week. This one I've discussed with Sailesh. We tried to find this particular one because it was only showing as a report first.
Correct.
So I found this website called Foundation for Economic Education,
Okay.
and this article or opinion is written by Brad Polumbo. Polumbo. Uh,
Okay.
Here is the headline: The Pope just called private property a secondary right. He couldn't be more wrong.
Okay.
Since becoming the head of the Catholic Church in 2013, Pope Francis has not shied away from the political domain. On Sunday, the religious leader used the COVID 19 pandemic to renew his criticisms of free market capitalism. The
Okay.
fragility of world systems in the face of the pandemic has demonstrated that not everything can be resolved by market freedom, Francis wrote in a part of a lengthy religious text. To care for the world in which we live means to care for ourselves. Yet we need to think of ourselves more and more as a single family dwelling in a common home. Such care does not interest those economic powers that demand quick profits. In
True.
today's world, many forms of injustice persist, fed by a profit based economic model that does not hesitate to exploit, discard, and even kill human beings, Francis lamented.
Hmm.
The Pope decried the free market dogma of neoliberal faith that views the magic theories of spillover or trickle as the only solution to societal problems. He went on to write that market freedom cannot supersede the rights of people and the dignity of the poor. Okay.
True.
So he's basically gone on about how free market is wrong, and I'm totally with him on that. And now I'll
Right.
go to this guy's explanation of why he could be wrong.
Okay.
Number one, blaming free market capitalism for COVID-19 crisis. This is probably Pope Francis' weakest argument of all. For one, the
True.
coronavirus has wrought havoc across the globe in countries regardless of economic system. It started in communist China, which has made
Yeah.
some market reforms in recent decades, but can by no stretch reasonably be called a free market society. And let's not forget that the story of how COVID 19 spread globally is largely a story of countless government errors, which many of which had deadly results.
Okay.
Second, false framing, the poor versus markets. It is one of the most prevalent fallacies in progressive thinking to frame markets as at odds with the interest of the people. In reality, market exchange only happens when all parties stand to benefit. It doesn't matter whether it is a grocery store purchase, the hiring of a new employee, or the importation of new pair of shoes from Vietnam. Okay? There's a lot more he's giving, but I'm just giving you the first few lines
True.
of the sub points that he's giving. Three, dismissing property rights as a secondary right. Pope Francis explicitly argues that property rights are only a secondary natural right, superseded by the needs and wants of others. Taken to
Hmm.
its logical conclusion, arguing that property rights are second to the needs of others really means property rights aren't valid at all because human needs and scarcity of resources are permanent realities. Here, Francis
True.
runs directly against basic economics. Sorry.
Hmm.
Famed economic Thomas Sowell have argued that property rights benefit all members of society because they are the building blocks of the market system that leads to greater prosperity and flourishing for all. Sowell wrote that property rights belong legally to individuals, but their real function is social to benefit vast numbers and people who do not themselves exercise these rights.
Hmm.
There is more that he's written. It's a very nice article. I feel he's giving good points.
True.
At the same time, even what Pope Francis is saying, it resonates with me because I have always kind of leaned a little towards the left, maybe a little more than
Okay.
little towards
True.
the left in thinking, and I do always feel that the free market capitalism and free market system is not really benefiting everyone because the rich will
Okay.
always get richer in this system. But obviously, like I read out the other sub points, it is a little more complicated than that. Anything you'd like to say about this at this point?
Uh, See, I don't agree with Pope Francis's idea that he's pitched, and the reason is I feel whenever the whole idea of it sounds a bit communistic, like in a very
Yeah, yeah,
something a communist would say. Now, the reason I say that is the experiments that have been done with trying to become like Russia, which was Soviet Union. It was an
hmm,
equal society. China, which was an equal society. Now, I feel the underlying desire in the masses is that freedom of choice. The reason Soviet Union they didn't have freedom of choice. In China, they didn't have freedom of choice before the economic liberation. So the whole underlining idea is they want to choose what they want to do, and they would rather take the risk of becoming poor than staying poor forever. Like they, if given a choice, they would choose free markets over a controlled economy, and that's prevalent because that's what led to Soviet Union's collapse. Soviet Union was militarily strong but economically weak, and people desired more. Same thing with China. It was one of the most equal societies in the world before the economic liberation. Today it is one of the most unequal societies. But do the people revolt against the idea? Do they want to go back? No. And if you study the process, how the economic liberation started, it was with those farm collectives that Chinese had, which had quotas. So
Hmm.
what entrepreneurial farmers would do is quietly produce more and sell it off and bribe the local officials. And the whole economic activity started with village uh, village enterprises, which were run by those masses.
Correct,
Who
correct.
so at the end of the day, I feel what the writer is saying is good. He's got good points, but at the same time, this whole debate about inequality, and the truth is there is a problem. The billionaires have earned a lot of like mind-boggling figures, and I have no explanation how can someone become more rich in the pandemic.
Hmm. Yeah,
Their
yeah,
network has gone like Mukesh Ambani in India has been earning like he's
yeah.
making killing literally, and I
Every
have
day you would hear about a different company investing $1 billion, $2 billion.
true, and that's where the problem lies. I think what we need a debate about is how is that phenomena emerging. That is one thing, and secondly, how we can fix it so there is more equal distribution of wealth without actually having a collective or a controlled economy, having the free markets, but at the same time maintaining that the wealth is not cornered by a few.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I will be super simplifying this by saying this, but
Uh,
what if, because of it being a half socialistic, half capitalistic country, and
okay.
because there is, half government, half private in
Which
India,
which one are you? Okay, in India. Okay.
yeah, yeah, in India, that is the reason why, let's say, new people, it's very difficult for new people to become rich.
No, but that's like
No,
we are
that's,
seeing. See, the whole point is if only rich became rich, the whole startup revolution in India wouldn't be about those Bansals and those people who had nothing. You know,
correct.
for example, the IITians who graduated from the people who graduated from the IIT or studied there and dropped out. Those are the people who are pushing the startup market. If what you're saying is true, where only the businessmen would be able to sustain and grow, I think then the startup thing wouldn't exist. These people
But
wouldn't
the
exist.
thing you're not understanding is it depends on how much it allows you to gain, the amount and the kind of freedoms and the kind of gates that will be open for you to do business.
Yeah,
It will be much easier for the person who's already having a conglomerate.
of course, there is
Yeah,
always that convenience. It's
yeah. So
like
if
they say in Bollywood. If your parents are in Bollywood, maybe your journey in Bollywood would be much easier. Instead of a person who's coming from not from a prominent family, but do people from not prominent families make it in Bollywood? Yes, they do. So
yeah, but it's also the same way. Like if you see in getting into Bollywood,
yeah,
okay, it is okay. Let's not take that example because I'll give you another
okay,
one. Aditya Thackeray recently, who is the tourism minister of Maharashtra,
yeah,
he recently passed a bill of ease of doing business. So, like, say if your business is do with anything to do with tourism, you're going to
yeah,
have to go through much less number of red tape. Like
okay,
initially you needed 80 70 certificates, now you need 10. You
okay,
understand? So in
yeah,
that sense, obviously, if you're a business, big business, you've got people in touch with these departments because you will need something or the other. Always, you'll need permissions for something or the other. So then they are going to be in good terms with them, and then they are going to help your children out if they need any permissions, right?
true,
Now let's say
true,
if you make it easier, if you make the ease of doing business so easy that
Hmm.
anyone who's cleared all the environmental things and all, and they can open a business, then
Yeah.
there's proper thing, na. Because these people
So
anyways have time. They will start. They can open it much before you. They can get a bigger market share for marketing, and because they've got the
true,
resources, that's
true.
different. That's because they have money. But I'm saying that if they level that playing field, if they make it only governance, which is what
Yeah,
we has been saying, that minimum government, maximum governance, I think
yeah.
that is the way forward. Then free market makes sense. But if you're going to say it's free market capitalism, and at the same time you're going to block a lot of the people who are ready with paperwork, and you'll be like, no, you have to pay this much to open this
There is
place.
no blockage
Then I mean, I
viable
don't.
in the market.
Sorry. I don't want to say anything that is wrong. I don't know if it's blocked or not. But I guess it's a little more tedious, and like Aditya Thackeray did for tourism, I think if he does it for many other businesses also in the state and the country later on, the center can do something about it. It will be a good
Hmm.
thing. It will be much better. It will give a lot of prosperity to people who are
Hmm.
entrepreneurial, and it will increase the employment for people.
Okay.
Yeah, I think on that note,
Yeah.
we discussed a lot on this. We will
Yeah.
move on to the final beat of this episode, that is interview of the week, and that is taken up by you, Sailesh, whenever you are ready.
Yeah, so the interview for this week I found it very interesting personally, and it was Karan Thapa taking the interview of Trinamool Congress MP Mahua Moitra. And
Oh shit, I want to watch that. Sorry.
and he did a very good, like, I like the way Karan Thapa interviews people.
Hmm.
And Mahua Moitra again was in news for her speech in Lok Sabha recently about the
Correct.
PM CARES fund and all the government issues that are there. And I found the interview very, in the sense, it gave me an idea of where Mahua Moitra comes and where she and what her idea is of conducting herself in the parliament. And one thing I have to give it to her, her speeches are well researched, and she brings a lot of depth to it, and she has a very good way of making an argument. And it's a very,
Hmm.
call that, it reflects of Mamta Banerjee. Mamta Banerjee is a street fighter, like she'll argue whatever it is. So Mahua Moita brings that spirit of argument in the parliament, and I think it's a very interesting argument, points that she brings out in her speeches, and the way she uh, basically puts them forward. And Karan
Yeah.
Thapar is asking, uh, he asked her about her life and all those things, and she had a very promising career in finance, banking, and all. And she gave quit that because she always wanted to get into politics. She gets on asking about her personal life, of how her childhood was and what her idea of politics was. Why did she join Trinamool Congress? And also, why? How is she? How does she prepare for the speeches in the parliament and all? And I think I don't want to give away too much of the
Yeah.
interview, so I would like the listeners, three of them, at least two, to go and watch it. And
Yeah. I
do it.
think only one of them will listen to this, huh? Because
Okay.
yeah, that guy is Bengali.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm just kidding.
So the whole point is it's a very interesting interview to understand where she comes from, and at the same time, this whole idea in India that is there, that whatever the opposition says has no credibility. And I think she's breaking that, because many a times I see Rahul Gandhi making speeches, but then he lacks in context. He lacks the argument. No, I'm just giving a personal opinion. When I listen to his speeches, I feel like he's been repeating the same speech since 2017. I mean, one
No,
of
I
my
agree. I totally agree. Even recently,
Hmm.
when he had held the press conference, but on speaking about Mahua, I think
Yeah.
I agree with you. I
Okay.
also initially, I think it was much before COVID, but
Yeah.
during one of those sessions when uh, it was during the CAA thing. Yeah. It was during
Yeah.
the
Yeah. True.
anti-CAA protests and all, where Mahua was coming up with such great arguments, and these are properly articulated, nice, factually based, like backed up with facts.
Hmm.
These things that she's talking about, which are ethical questions, which are philosophical questions, which are questions about our actions, about how we are taking this, of how the people are reacting and whatnot. And the way
Correct.
that she puts it forward, you feel that she should be in the It's like a Shashi Tharoor. You know what I mean? It's
True,
like a
true,
Shashi Tharoor in the
true.
making. When Shashi Tharoor is saying something, even if he
People
criticizes
listen.
something, you will be
True.
like, yeah, man, that is a new word I learned. But and that is definitely not with Rahul Gandhi. I genuinely I feel that there is a lot of support that Congress has, but
Correct.
for some reason, like they still don't understand that just there are so many
They are not able to
eligible people.
capitalize on it. Basically, there are so many.
Rahul Gandhi needs to leave. Rahul Gandhi needs to get out. That is what I
Okay,
say.
that.
That is my opinion. That is my opinion. He doesn't. He shouldn't be in the front. He shouldn't lead this. It should be
Okay.
someone else. I mean, I know they are double down. They are, just going full on, all in.
Recently, yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
But one more thing I would like to point. Karan Thapar asked her, "How do you prepare your speeches?" And I know there's an elephant in the room that there was a controversy of her plagiarizing points from a Holocaust museum in the US, the seven
Ah,
steps leading to fascism or something like that, if I'm not.
yeah, yeah,
So there was a controversy that I do know that, but then I still would give a credit to for putting in the effort in her speeches. And Karan Thapar asked her, how do you prepare? And that was his basic question. It wasn't exactly the same. And she said, see, I worked in finance, I worked in banking. So the point is, whenever we are holding a meeting or we are presenting, we need to prepare. We need to get a lot of content. We need to be sure of everything what we are going to speak about. And
yeah.
we can't just speak off the fly, like just randomly talk about things. She's like, I like to put in an effort into putting forward my arguments, what the points will be, what the examples will be. So she's like, because of my career before politics, I've been trained to, gather information as much as possible about the subject and be be confidently, what do you call that? Precise about it. So she
Confidently put forward, yeah. Confidently
rather
put
be
forward
precise.
whatever she's researched and
Not
written.
just go speaking about it
Yeah,
randomly. Be precise about it, be
correct.
impactful. So she's like, because of my career and my work as a banker, that has helped me, and that is the skill that she's taken forward in politics. And he asked her also one more thing I would like to point. You were, he was asking like, you are one of the most well-dressed politicians in the parliament and all. And he's like, yeah, the reason is it's a personal choice first of all, and secondly, she's like, whenever I'm there to attend the Lok Sabha session, I wear saris, and she's like, 90% of my saris are weaved in my district. And the whole effort is so that tomorrow, if someone is asking me, where did you get it from? I will say they've come, it was weaved by my weavers in my district. So
Hmm.
they get the marketing done through her also. So she's like, my whole effort is that I wear those saris so those people would ask me or people would see that and wonder where it's coming from. They would bring some business back to my district.
Yeah,
Interesting
that's good.
interview.
No, I think it's evident also. You can see all the hard work shows in her appearances in the Lok Sabha.
So
And on that
this.
note, Sailesh,
Hmm.
if
Uh, Yeah, yeah, sure. So that was all it for this particular week, and of course we'll have another episode coming in the next week. We do sincerely apologize for the past 2 weeks that we missed out, and hopefully it won't be repeated again. And thank you all for those who have tuned in and listened. Those three people,
yes,
and I think we paid two of them or all three of them. I'm not very sure how
we
it works.
paid the first one. He got two of his friends, and
Okay.
then we said then now you split your money with these other two.
True. And
So yeah.
as for the name, like we mentioned it in the couldn't upload it, but the whole point was that our name is 100% sale of journalism ethics, which is a clickbait because it's nothing to do with selling journalism ethics here. It's a play on, or rather a troll to Republic TV, because they say they are doing journalism, but they are doing the sale of journalism ethics,
Hmm.
whereas we are not selling journalism ethics, but we are using that.
We are buying journalism.
We are buying this. So, and taking our inspiration from Republic, we also have paid viewers, like they allegedly have paid for their TRPs. So
Yeah, I paid
that's
my girlfriend to listen to this. She didn't. She paid me
yeah.
back.
so, so I suppose hope you get the gist of the channel. It's nothing to do with selling journalism ethics. And please do like, share, and subscribe if you find our content interesting.
Yes.
And I think on that note, goodbye and have a nice week.
Yes. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.